I'm Rabbi Jonathan Tawil of TAL, here to share with you wonderful insight about this week's Parsha and the relevance today. After the massive climax of Har Sinai, the Ten Commandments, the entire nation was at the mountain receiving the Torah in Parashat Yitro, followed by Parashat Mishpatim, where we have a load of 53 different mitzvot, interpersonal relationships. We now enter a new phase in the desert. The Jewish people are given the command to build a Mishkan, a temple, a sanctuary for God Almighty in the desert. And in fact, they took this sanctuary for 40 years, and that was the center. That's where everybody went to pray, so to speak, to give up the korbanot. They saw godliness, and they felt godliness over there. How do we build this Mishkan? God Almighty appears to Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, and he tells him, Daber b'nei Yisrael, speak to the people of Israel and tell them, V'yikchu li terumah, they should take for me a donation. Everybody's got to give a donation. They can take zahav, v'chesef, gold, silver. The Jews came out of Egypt with plenty of gold and silver and wool and linen, and everybody's going to start and everybody's going to donate whatever they can towards this Mishkan. And in fact, eventually they donated so much that Moshe had to come out and say, stop donating. That's a beautiful idea. But I want to concentrate on the words God used. God spoke to Moshe and he said, V'yikchu li terumah, take for me a terumah. What does it mean, take for me a donation? It should have said, give me a donation, give to me, give to the Mishkan a donation and allow people. Do you say you're going to take a donation when you give a donation to charity, or do you say you're going to give a donation? There are many answers, but I want to share with you my own understanding of this. There's a story that I heard recently which blew me away. A rich religious Jew in America had a great business and it was going so well that, as many Jews do, he set aside time during his week where he would invite poor people, needy people, to come and to vet their case in front of him, and he would write out check after check after check after check and give charity to these people. What a mitzvah. Time moved on, 1 year, 2 years, he was doing this, and it became quite cumbersome because a lot of people were coming to the office and they didn't know where he was and they were bothering staff. Should we go right, left? In the end, he decided that he's going to put up a sign, and the sign is going to say where the owner of the misrad, of the office, of the business is. So it said owner to the right with an arrow to the right, owner to the left, owner up the stairs, second floor, and people would come and they'd know where the owner was. One day, after putting up these signs, about a month later, in comes a poor person. He sees owner on the right, owner on the left, up the stairs, second floor. He makes his way to the office, waits outside, and when he's called in, he comes in barging. How dare you? He says. How dare you? Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not ashamed of yourself? What are you doing? The rich person's looking, hold on a second. You've come to collect money from me. Maybe you don't understand. I'm the one that's going to be giving you money, and you're coming and you're screaming, I don't even know you. What do you mean, how dare you? He says, I'll tell you something, sir. How dare you put owner, Baal Habayit, he wrote it in Hebrew and in English for the Israelis to understand, Baal Habayit, owner up the stairs, owner on the left, owner on the right with arrows. You're not an owner. You don't own your business. He looks, he says, listen, as far as I know, I own it. He says, no, you don't. God Almighty owns the business, as he points up there. So the guy starts to think, hold on, okay, I like your thinking. You're right. I don't own my business. In fact, God has given me the intelligence to do well, and that's how I'm doing well. That's how, okay, fine, I accept. So what would you like me to write, he says to the poor person. And the poor person says, you shouldn't write owner, you should write manager. Menahel, manager. You're managing God's wealth. God has blessed you, you're managing his wealth. The rich person enjoyed what he heard so much that he decided that the next day was going to change all the signs. But not only that, he gave this poor person double what he was expecting to give. At the end of the day, God Almighty rules the world. Fine. 5 weeks later, there was a leak downstairs in one of the offices, and the owner was there, and it started to go slowly, and he started to call to one of the PAs, and she wasn't answering. And he called, and she wasn't answering. And whatever happened, he couldn't deal with her. He brought somebody else to deal with it, and eventually he fired this PA because she wasn't available and she was messing around. Fine. The PA goes back, this lady goes back to her husband and tells her what happened that day that she got fired. The husband was furious. He had a gun. He was in possession of a gun, and he said, I'm going to show this man what's for. Next week, he goes into the office looking for the owner. And he comes into the office and he sees the shalatim, the manager to the right, manager to the left, manager upstairs, second floor, goes to the manager's office to ask, where's the owner? He comes in, he barges in, he says, excuse me, sir, where is the owner of this office? He'd never been there before. And he was talking to the owner, but he thought he was talking to the manager. So the owner looks up to him and he says to him, they call me the manager, but the owner, and he points up there, and he was referring to God Almighty being the owner. But this man understood, and he thought that the owner was upstairs. He closed the door, slammed the door shut, and he ran up the stairs. This owner understood that this guy was after him. He called the security and he was able to survive. What a beautiful, potent story. We are not the owners in this world. We are managers. We manage God's wealth. We manage His blessings that He's given us the ability to see, to breathe, to hear, to be educated individuals, to have families, to have relationships. We're managing the blessings that God has given us. I thought that was a beautiful idea, and that is the idea. God Almighty says, "V'yikchu li terumah." Take for me a donation. We can't give anything to God because we are but nothing. We are all God's. We can take what's already there and manage it and direct it towards God. And that was the beauty about the Mishkan. Everybody understood that God Almighty is in charge of everything. And when you understand that God is in charge of everything and you are just the manager and you donate it, so to speak, to God, then you can create a beautiful